the opportunity to preach to the choir. So it's good to see you all. It's great to see you all. Mount St. Helens is a spectacular place, and I'm so glad you all were able to make it here tonight. I got a little concerned a few minutes ago. I'll be honest with you. I won't say who, but one of you came up to me and said, "Is Bill Nye your real name?" I said, "Well, it's William Nye." And he said, "Well, why did you change it?" And as I said, I got a little concerned right there. So can we disable this? I'm just going to gently unplug this. No, it's great to see you all. Let's start out with a little insight. You know, what makes Mount St. Helens so unusual, when many people think of volcanoes, they think of the oozing lava coming out of the ground, like you might have in Hawaii or someplace like that. But Mount St. Helens, for those of you who weren't here, and I see some young people probably weren't here in 1980, unless you were just really hitting the face lotion. Anyway, the thing exploded. This is a mountain that exploded because of water. The water in the mountain, the water under the mountain turned to steam, changed from a liquid to a gas, and blew the top off. And so this difference in temperature is so. Before you do that, let's do this demo first. Do you think it's going to explode? I hate that. The reason it did that is because this water changing from a liquid to a gas created the steam. They had a spectacular explosion. And so these differences in temperature turn out to be very significant in all sorts of phenomena in nature. Before we get too far afield here, let's blow something. Safety first. So this is liquid nitrogen. How many people will have liquid nitrogen with them? And most of what's between you and me right now is nitrogen, but it's a gas. This is a liquid, and you can see it's clear. It's clear as water. And what you're seeing, this cloud, is not nitrogen. This is water vapor from the air. The only thing that can go wrong. Water vapor from the air that is turning to a liquid for a few moments as little droplets, and then going back into just top it off. Let's just pour it all in. So what happens, the thing, liquid nitrogen is about 196 Celsius below zero. That's about 320 Fahrenheit below zero. And when you pour it onto any surface that's not below zero, it turns to a gas instantly. And you'll see people that want to wear gloves when they handle it. I say no, just let it pour right under your hand because it just boils right off. It's nothing but fun. When it gets in your glove, or let's say in your shoe, not that I would know, I've heard. There's no way to get it out. It's not good, but this stuff is, you pour it on the liquid and it just... So the great thing about it from a science education standpoint, the great thing about it, it looks so dangerous. And I guess maybe it is, if you're not careful, but generally you can handle it, you can touch it as long as you move quickly. So let's see, we've been roasting these marshmallows for a few moments. Let's just see if we got them. Let's see. Whoa. Most marshmallows don't do that. I don't know if you're familiar. We got to let them roast here just another few moments. something I started doing when I went to the Pacific Science Center in Seattle, which is very similar to Hansi here in Portland.
Whoa.
It's just not. I just think it's awkward to shoot. Just dip a little away. Let's see. This ought to do it. Let's see. Those aren't good. But now, my friends, there's good. If we could change the light to look at the big screen. Shown here. How many people go to church here? I don't think they normally have this up here. Now this is all my audio-visual friends. This is all plugged in, and I'm all for the Sony Corporation. It's does great work, but according to my instruments, it should be happening. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. That's what he said. 10 seconds. I think it's approximately. Hey! Not bad. Not bad. Wow. How did you do that? So anyway, for those of you unfamiliar, we're down here in this corner. And below Mount St. Helens here. This is not Mount St. Helens, this is a picture of Mount St. Helens. If we had Mount St. Helens in the room, I think you'd notice it right away. And it is something I was around when it exploded. I know if you live around here, it was a landmark day, or a landmark destroying day, or a new shaping of landmark day. And it changed our world. If you were born after October 4th, 1957, anyone? Then you are a member of what we call the space generation. Because October 4th, 1957, there's May 18th, 1980. That's the most important day ever. But there's also October 4th, 1957 is when the former Soviet Union launched the spacecraft called Sputnik. Big, rickety rocket thing, kerosene and liquid oxygen, sent the thing into orbit, and it sent back signals for quite a while. And that's when the world changed. People realized that humans could put things in orbit. And our perception of the world and what was possible changed completely. And to those of you who weren't around at this time, it really was a weird thing. I mean, there were rockets everywhere. Everything was a rocket. We're going to go to the moon. There's going to be games that take you to the moon. Look, it's a timely game. Oh, yeah. Is anybody here a professor? Yeah, okay. So they have laser pointers like this, and then they go like this. And that's supposed to tell you something. But with that said, right there, the timing game, and look, it's fun to play. And space was going to be everywhere, and space became sort of an everyday thing. Starting, let's say, if you're going to pick a time that it started on the 4th of October, 1957. So let's say that this picture of the sun represents the sun. Then I think most people at some level are familiar with the following set of facts. Mars, almost 400 million kilometers from the sun. That picture was taken with the Hubble Space Telescope. Mercury, quite a bit close to the sun at 58 million kilometers. Venus, 180 million, and the Earth at 150 million. Now, everybody, I think, knows intuitively that if you stand closer to a fire, it's warmer. Yes, everybody with me on that? Okay. Stand farther from a fire, it's not as warm. And if you're scoring over with it, there's this fabulous thing we can't get enough of in physics called the inverse square law. twice as far away, you get a quarter as much of the energy. It's spread out twice in both directions. Spread out 2 times this way and 2 times this way. So it's a quarter in one place. All right, go on and on. Okay. So you would expect shooting from the hip. Anybody in middle management? Yeah. You expect that Mercury would be substantially hotter than Mars. And it is. The surface of Mercury is crazy hot on the sunny side. It's crazy hot. Then you would probably expect the Earth to be hotter than Mercury. I mean, the Earth to be cooler than Mercury. Mercury hotter than the Earth. Thank you, so. And it is. But would you expect the surface of Venus to be much, much hotter than the surface of Mercury? You might not, but it is. The surface of Venus is so hot it would melt lead if you happen to have any with it. And indeed, so what we like to say is, Mercury is too hot, Venus is way too hot. Mars is too cold, but the Earth is just right. And this is dumb luck, apparently. We won the cosmic lottery. We live where it's an in-between world, not too hot or too cold. But this thing where Venus, this phenomenon, where Venus is so much hotter than a planet that's twice as close to the Sun, is a result of the Venusian atmosphere, the atmosphere on Venus. It's so thick. How can you? It's so thick that it's 460 Celsius. This is a picture taken by, I think it's Denner 14, which is a Russian spacecraft that finally made it there in the 1980s. And it lasted about 50 minutes, less than an hour, and then all the instruments were covered. And the image that you see is sort of partially reconstructed. It didn't come back quite as cleanly. And anyway, it looks like a world with rocks, except it's astonishingly hot. And the reason is its atmosphere. If you go out past the Earth to our next nearest neighbor, Mars, it is crazy cold. This is Mars. Well, I don't know. It's a picture of Mars. If I brought Mars once again, I think you'd be impressed. Down here, on a summer day on Mars, at the equator, right at the surface, it's about 0 Celsius. It's right around freezing, 32 Fahrenheit. Right here, it's about 20 below. And then here, it's about 40 below. And the reason that difference in temperature is so sharp, like just a couple meters, a few feet from the surface, is because the Martian atmosphere is so thin, very thin. If you ever go to Mars, and I hope somebody in this room does, you know, you want to take, it's like a camping trip, you want to take some food and water, but you also, you've got to take something to breathe. They don't have anything. They're already there for us to breathe. And so, the differences in the planetary surfaces and the temperature is a result of the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is going to change the world for almost everybody in this room. These data came back from the Sojourner mission in the 1990s. And these are percentages of gases in the atmosphere of Mars. And it's just interesting because it has a comparison of one, it's fascinating, not interesting, it's more than interesting. As a comparison of the atmosphere of Mars with the atmosphere of Earth. And if you can see, right here, I'll do this. Seriously. Right here, Mars is 95% carbon dioxide. The Earth is 0.03%. And that's expressed in percent. But if you're scoring along with us, you can also say 300 parts per million. 300 parts per million is the same as 0.03%. And everybody in this room, with a couple exceptions, almost everybody in this room was alive when this number changed from 0.03 to 0.04. If you're rounding to just one digit, it changed from about 315 parts per million to about 389, almost 390 parts per million in my life. And this change our world. Another thing I find charming and compelling about Mars is the largest volcano in the solar system is there. It's Olympus Mons, we call it, we humans. Nobody's sure what the Martians, if there are any of them, call it. We gave it those Greek names because Mars looks so much like Greece or something. I don't know what happened. But the volcano on Mars is so big. It's sunk under its own weight. Can you see the ring around the volcano there? It erupted and this and that, and the Martian crust was still soft enough for the thing to kind of back over. Mars apparently used to have tectonic plates. That is to say, the surface of Mars used to be big slabs of rock that were being pushed around by some energy left over inside Mars, some heat. But Mars being smaller than the Earth, it cooled off faster. And now it's all locked up. It's all froze up, if I may. English teachers, I use that grammar for comedic effect. So studying this other planet has taught us a lot about our planet. The largest volcano in the solar system, perhaps the coolest volcano in the solar system. Now it's in Helens. And when you look at this picture, which was taken at the end of May, 1980, I'm not sure, but it might have been the 1st of June. It looks like a barren, desolate, nowhere place. It looks to me very much like another world. This thing exploded, the mountain blew its top, and there it is, this barren, naked desolation. But it's right in your backyard. It's right here. You can look at this power of nature like no one in the rest of the world is ever going to get close to just by driving up the road. Very exciting. And when you look at it globally, just to help you, we're right here. There. In case you don't know, there we go. So this is a picture from space. Look at it, it's a cloudy day. Huh. Remember that around here. No, it's happened before, actually. I think so. Anyway, it wasn't that long ago that people thought this idea that the Earth's surface was made of big plates, tectonic plates. And tectonic is a Greek word for build or builder. The Earth's crust is built of these plates. It wasn't that long ago that this idea was considered just crazy. Like, why? How could that possibly be that the Earth's surface, seemingly solid, rigid thing, could be having these shifts and jostling giant slabs of rock? Well, now, as you may know, this has become the underlying idea in all of geology. And we look at what we like to call the rings of fire. Scary. Rings of fire. It goes around the Pacific Ocean. Like this, it's like you can see this point. Goes around here, and the volcanoes, I just want everybody to appreciate, like nobody else in the world appreciates, because we live right here, that the volcanoes don't occur right where the plates bump into each other. But instead, they happen inland, or in plate, if you will, a little bit. It's where the plate starts to fold. When you do that, it's where your knuckles are. That's where the volcanoes are. So we have this string of amazing mountains, volcanoes, just right here in the Pacific Northwest. And then, if you look at it this way, you see these big joints all over the Earth. And geologists, after this discovery was made, started sort of during World War II, when people were trying to get ways to sneak under water across the Atlantic Ocean, and they ran into this mountain range that's underwater. Wow, look at that. Then they realized that the Earth is these big plates, even though there's an ocean on top of the water, but these plates that are bumping into each other. And I met a guy named Bob Ballard, was the first guy to go down to the Titanic in the submarine. He and his crew figured out where it was, and they designed this submarine, the mission just right, so they could go down and find it. And he describes it as the seam on a baseball. Like if you hold a baseball, it looks like there's two seams or two things, but it's actually just one crack, right, that goes all the way around the ball or all the way around the earth. And if you could get up in space and look down at the west coast, you'll see these mountains, and you can correlate them or figure out, associate where one plate stops and the other begins by associating the rocks that are found in each place. And it's like there's a big crease right there running up the coast of North America. And if conditions are right on a sunny day, you can take a picture of the crease where the mountains run right there. There's the same crease. And the thing that I want everybody all over the world, the thing that the Mount St. Helens Institute wants everybody in the whole world to get, is this thing is huge. It's gigantically, enormously huge. The thing is a mile across. And then it blew up, and if you go out there, you can see where it didn't just all get thrown into the sky, but a big chunk of it came sloshing down the valley and tearing up everything in its path. And it looks, the destruction was so big, everybody. How big was it? It was so big. When I first drove down I-5, to look at this thing, I swore that humans must have been involved. I mean, it was so much was leveled and destroyed, it looked like somebody was going to build another shopping mall. And whenever you go there, I've been there many times, whenever I go there, I still am just taken aback by the scale of it, the hugeness of it. So these pebbles are actually not pebbles at all. They're at the bottom of this basket, which is hanging from a helicopter. So those things that look like pebbles are each the size of 2 or 3 houses. And they were all broken up and thrown down the side of the mountain in just a few minutes back in 1980. And we remind us that although it exploded in 1980, as Jeannie Bennett was pointing out earlier, it's still changing. If you watch Mount St. Helens, just briefly, this is a time lapse, just watch it for a few weeks, you'll see that it's still changing. Stuff's still blowing down the side of the mountain, rocks are still getting tossed around, rocks the size of houses come tumbling down every few days. And so it's changing even now, and by the way, the middle is getting bigger. Like you think of it as solid rock, no, it's swelling. It is spooky. This is the board of directors. Actually, it's a picture of the board of directors on the rim of the crater 2 years ago. And the reason everybody is lying down is not just to get warm in the sun on a lovely sunny day on top of the mountain. It's because if you reach out where I'm lying there, if you reach out past my elbows, it's 1,000 feet straight down. You can walk right up to the rim. Look, right up to the rim of Mount St. Helens and look down. And unfortunately, somebody was killed there a couple of days by sort of not respecting that. You'll notice, a few weeks ago, by not respecting, you'll notice that everybody on the board of directors is crawling up to the edge ever so carefully. And this next picture, by the way, that little volcano up there in the background is Mount Rainier. Yeah, and this is a picture I took less than a year ago. I took it in May. And if you look carefully, you'll see this. You see where the mountain changes color. That's the top of Mount Rainier, and then down here is darker. And the reason for that is humans. It's a layer of smog right there. And I've taken the trouble of drawing a line on it. That is a layer of smog coming from Seattle, Portland, and exotic places like Vancouver. And this is a picture of the International Space Station. And once again, I just emphasize to everybody, the reason the humans are able to change the climate of a planet is because the atmosphere is so thin. It's extraordinarily, astonishingly thin. As my old professor Carl Sagan used to say, it's like a layer of varnish on a globe. You know, if you've ever picked up a globe, the varnish ain't so thick. Once again, language arts teachers, ain't so thick as community stuff. The varnish is very thin, as is the Earth's atmosphere. And so, humans, 6.8 billion humans, are able to change the atmosphere. In the same way, the smog from activities in Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, are able to change the atmosphere around Mount St. Helens. In the same way, volcanoes like Mount St. Helens can change the atmosphere of a planet. So, I submit to you that the young people in this room are part of not just the space generation, but you are also part of the climate generation. Dun, dun, dun. To be a member of the climate generation, you have to be born after the 23rd of June, 1988. Anybody? Yes. It's not a trick question. If you're 8 or 10 years old, yes, you made it. This is the day, I got yes. The hands are still extended, very good, yes. This is when Dr. Jim Hansen testified in front of U.S. Congress about what he considered the threat of climate change caused by human activity. So, among other things, he didn't have this picture exactly, but this has become a famous picture. This is the Upsala Glacier in the Patagonia region of South American Argentina. And you can see it's a big field of ice, big ice sheet. Ice sheet is a word that means a sheet of ice. And you can see the cracks or crevasses in it. I'm sure many people in this room have walked around on glaciers with crevasses. There they are. And this picture was taken in 1928. But if you look at it today, there's no ice. The picture's taken from about the same vantage point. And this is a classic, disturbing, creepy picture showing that the world's climate has changed, that the world is getting warmer. By the way, some places are going to get colder as climate changes, but the fundamental thing that's causing it all is more heat in the atmosphere. This is a picture that I took from when I was flying. Well, I wasn't flying, I was in an airplane. And if you look close, you can see where there's a huge ice dam that's broken, and fresh water is flowing into the North Atlantic. And the last decade is the warmest decade on record. The 10 hottest years in the last 10 years have been the hottest that anybody has recorded. And this is further surprising and disturbing stuff, where the world's climate is getting warmer. So if we could turn the lights on again just for a moment. This is something that is just nothing but fun to do. Maybe don't turn the lights on. I'll just hold it up. There we go. That's good. So the amount of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere is 1750. Let's say this is a number that people like to pick up. Before steam engines were everywhere. Do you know who invented the steam engine? But traditionally, what do you say? Who invented the steam engine? That's right. No, so you say, who invented the steam engine? And somebody says, what? That's right, it's James Watt. Hilarious. Science Congress right there. So, I have a syringe that has, it has fountain pen ink in it. And this is a liter of water or so. And I will put in 250 parts per million. So parts per million doesn't sound like that much. But I'm pretty sure most people can tell that that's not clear water anymore. Anyone not tell? So this is just fountain pen ink, water-soluble ink, 280 parts per million. So it's reflecting visible light in the same way carbon dioxide is holding in or retaining infrared light or heat. So now we'll take it up to, all the way up to 400 parts per million. It should be 389, but I think I got careful. And it's even darker. Now with this fountain pen ink, in a few minutes all the particles will all settle to the bottom. But when you first put it in, it's really quite striking. And this is where you hear climate deniers, people who can't get their minds around the idea of climate change. They think that parts per million is an insignificant amount. But we remind us, how many people have ever eaten food? All the food you've ever eaten either is a plant or is something that ate a plant. Oh yes, there's some salt and some selenium and some other kooky things, but almost everything you ever eat is from a plant. And plants make their entire living. The reason that plants are able to be planted and grow is because they use those few parts per million of carbon dioxide. Do they use the argon? Not as far as anybody knows. Do they use the nitrogen? In a very, very limited way. No, what they use is carbon dioxide, and that's what we all depend on. So here's a demonstration. I let this sit. It takes a few minutes for this, but it's the same. Oh, can we give the light? It's the same blue ink in these two containers, and mixed at the ratio. I did it very carefully. And can we dim the lights? Whoa, what have I done? Whoa, I'm pushing buttons. Whoa, my goodness, I'm radio control crazy. See if I can back this up. There we go. And so then you let this blue ink settle out. It turns this almost green color. But you can see the difference, right? You can see the difference between 250 parts per million and 390 parts per million, 389 parts per million. Anyway, the reason we know how much carbon dioxide was in the air 250 years ago is because we looked at the ice. If you meet people that don't believe in climate change, and there's a lot of them, they're only in the United States, by the way. And if you travel to regular parts of the world, everybody's very concerned about climate change. The only deniers are really here in the U.S. There's a trace percentage in the U.K., but they're here. Anyway, I really encourage those people to do what I did, and that is go to the ice core lab in Glendale, Colorado. Not Glendale, California, that's a whole nother. Goldendale, Washington, that's a different place. Glendale, Colorado, that's outside of Denver. And they have these pieces of ice that they drilled out of Antarctica and Greenland, and they look at them very carefully. Oh, by the way, in this room, it's 37 below Celsius. It's 40 below Fahrenheit. And I said to the head guy, Todd Hinkley, I asked him, why did you guys choose 37 below? Is that to balance the eutectic rate of evaporation? No, Bill, we did not pick it. We took the thermostat and turned it all the way down. We didn't pick it. Crazy. As cold as it will go, did that. What do you think? I was believing all this extra. No, dude. So then you take this piece of ice out of the cold storage into the warm room, where it's only 27 below. And I will say it's quite a weird effect to take off your centimeters of snow. So the snow falls about that thick, the layer 10 centimeters or so, and then the snow comes down on top of it and smushes it down, and the tines of the snowflakes break and smash together, and then they re-gel. Fabulous process called redulation. They redulate into solid, clear ice. And when you look at it carefully, you see these layers of ice. Those are sand grains in Antarctica. Or in Greenland, they might have blown there from Asia, from Gobi, the desert in China. And then you look really closely, and you see these tiny bubbles in ancient atmosphere trapped there in the ice. And so what you're looking at is bubbles from 150, 200, 1,000, 2,000, 400,000 years ago trapped in the ice. And then you're also looking at the water that's around the bubbles, the water that the ice is made of. And you can infer, you can figure out what was in the Earth's atmosphere in 1750, very accurately. You can figure out how warm the ocean surface was. Because what these guys do is they count neutrons. Like how hard is that? So when the sea surface is warmer, more water evaporates that has an extra neutron. When the sea surface is not quite as warm, fewer neutrons evaporate, and they correlate, and they coordinate, and they connect the number of neutrons with the sea surface temperature as measured very carefully by organizations like the U.S. Navy or whatever, who keep very accurate records for hundreds of years. And you can get a very, very good idea of how warm the world used to be and how warm it's getting. This is a computer-generated image of the ice and the North Pole. This is in 1979. This would be just as the disco era was giving way to new wave and punk. Very important time, I understand. You guys, I don't know. The clothes at that time, they were just awesome. Okay? Don't let anybody say it's just stuff. It was a horrible time. Be thankful that we got through it. The cool thing that happened is Mount Helens. That was cool. Then these data are from a couple years ago. It takes a while. You'll notice there's no clouds in these images. These are computer-generated images. You can see the ice is a lot smaller. To put it this way, there's where it used to be white plus beige, and then where it is now, it's just white. And you guys have all seen these images. I just want to creep you out a little bit. Here's a truck going across the Arctic, and you can say, well, why are we driving there? I know, but things went wrong. You don't normally park a truck like that. And then here, polar bears, it's sort of iconic image. It's like, give you the Willis image. Where are we going to go? Our ice is going away. Our home is melting. Now, erupting volcanoes are not a new thing. This is a picture, a very famous oil painting by the guy Paul King. Clock was the name of Mount Helens many years ago, the first Americans. And it just points to this same thing where volcanoes don't always erupt the way you might expect. Right out of the top, right out of the center. Sometimes they erupt sideways. And this thing has changed the world. Volcanoes have turned out to be very significant in understanding climate change because people were able to use the historical data of when volcanoes erupted and correlate it with information, let's say, from the ice, information from pollen counting in sediments and ponds and the ocean floor. So along this axis right here will be the year or time. And then up here will be this average temperature of the world. And it's normalized, as we say in math, so that it starts out down here. I mean, it's warm enough to live, but let's just say we subtract 22 degrees to start with. So then you'll see this depiction of where it's warm around the world, and then every time Krakatoa, very famous volcano in Indonesia, when it exploded, the world got warmer. It got cooler for a little while because the volcano threw all this stuff up into the atmosphere that reflected light into space. Santa Maria, huge thing. It exploded. It erupted, threw stuff into the atmosphere, and the Earth got a little cooler. Then they're using the ice core data. The Earth's cooler, it's warmer, it's cooler, it's warmer. Goes along. I remember seeing news stories about this one Volcanoes, which was around 1960. And it was another very large volcano near the equator, and the Earth got cool. Then Mount St. Helens comes along, but Mount St. Helens is not near the equator. So its effect is very, very small. But El Shishan went off, and then the world got cooler. Pinatubo, some of you might remember, the world got cooler. But notice, all this time that goes on, the world is still getting warmer. Volcanoes cool things off, but just for a little while. The world's still getting warmer, and you may be familiar with these types of graphs, the projecting into the future. If we do nothing, then it'll keep getting warm at this green rate or red rate. If we do something, it'll get warmer at the blue rate. If we really commit, the commitment as it's called, then it won't get much warmer at all. So volcanoes, like Mount St. Helens, have proven to be very helpful in determining or understanding the climate of the whole planet. It's quite a thing. The other thing that surprised every scientist I've talked to about Mount St. Helens is not only do these things have such a measurable effect on the world, but the speed at which stuff came back to Mount St. Helens to start growing is really amazing. Everybody I spoke with, it's 2 or 3 times as fast as anyone expected. This is a happy little seedling growing in where there must be a rivulet with some dead insects flowing down to help them to fertilize it. Here's this barren ridge, but heather's growing there. These plants that are able to make a living on this otherwise barren landscape. I mean, this place just looks to me almost like the surface of the moon. But if you look in the right places where there's a puddle of water, stuff just starts growing. And so now, just 30 years later, there's all this stuff going on, much, much faster than anybody thought. These insects fall out of the sky, dead insects, and that gets a seed started, and the seed distributes more seeds, and more plants come in. There's beaver dams, there's all deer, all kinds of animals come back to live on St. Helens, just in geologic terms, just like that. So it's very exciting. But it says to me, as fast as things change for the worse, they can change very fast back for the overall good. And this fills me with joy. I just like to show this picture. This is one of the famous pictures of the eruption that was 30 years ago in May. It's really quite an amazing thing. When you look carefully at this picture, you see there's a lot going on. There's steam driving this ash up high in the sky, and there's this swirling of the clouds. And it is only through understanding all that swirling that we're going to be able to understand volcanoes and understand what's happening with the world's climate. So can we turn the lights back on? We're going to do another just stupid fun demonstration. Oh, yeah. Wait. I'm going to find it first. For this, I need a volunteer. Young man, orange shoes. Come on up here. Yeah, up here. Careful. So that's a crater rim. You can follow your tech. Come on over here. So what's your name? Henry. Face the other. Come back up a little bit. Stand right there. Now, Henry. It's a wooden stage. Wooden lectern. Okay. Wooden ceiling. With this device, you could start candle, you could start this whole room on fire. And that could start downtown Portland on fire. You understand what I'm saying? And then that could spread to like Vancouver, it could spread to San Francisco. Embers could blow to Minneapolis. You could burn down the whole world. Or you could just sort of accept that it's just a candle and you can be responsible for it and so on. So we go that separate. Yeah. So don't put it in your hair. So can you hold it down here? You see what we have here. It looks like a cardboard box, and to the untrained eye, I admit, it's very much like a cardboard box. But this is actually the vortex generator of science. Stand over here. This is going to be too easy. This is too. I'll get back here. And you stand right there. So I'm going to hold now. This is handheld where I don't have the benefit of the table for stabilization. Stand so people behind you can see it. So put the candle out. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Can you hold it a little lower because I'm only in limited athletic ability. All right. 3, 2, 1. So what happens is there's a hole in this end, as you may have observed, and there's a hole in this end. But this end is covered with a precision piece of shower curtain. And when I flap or strike the shower curtain, we compress the air in the box, and this puff air was able to cool the candle off so fast that the candle was extinguished. Let me read that. So you remember the story, burning down the whole world or putting it down. Like if you're riding a bike, you ever just take it, just drive into a brick wall? No, it's okay. There's another volunteer. Let's go. Second one in there, the brick. Yes. Come on up. Behind the man in the leather jacket. Come on up. What's your name, you know? Maggie? Miles. Come on over here. Please come over. Henry, take another step. Camera right. There you go. Now, do you recognize this? What is it? A piece of the box, yes. More importantly, it's the precision barrier of science. And you hold it down here, doing it. Miley, there you go. You're going to block, hold it, sorry, there you go. You're going to block the moving air from the vortex generator science to prevent it from getting to the candle. 3, 2, 1. Candle's still going. Candle's still going, and you see the precision cardboard deflector science deflecting. Yeah. Now, set down the precision cardboard deflector science here on the precision deflector storage facility. You know what this is? That's right, it's a balloon. You have been around. You blow word into it, so it pops. So, you recognize this? It's a, can you hold it, sir? It's a balloon. But more importantly, now what is it? It's a fish. So So can you hold the fish between Henry and the vortex generator sign? So the balloon fish, you gotta be close. Yes. So try to get the knot to kind of line up with the plane. Don't actually put the balloon in the plane. So because the balloon has a different shape than the deflector, we're going to get a different result, we believe. 3, 2, 1. Pretty simple. Anyway, get the balloon a little closer to the candle and hold it a little higher. The balloon a little higher. The balloon. So the candle back down. Candle down. I think this will do it. I think that'll do it. Oh. That's it. That's going to do it. Pretty serious. Okay, straight away. Now, when that's all good, Henry, come this way. We're going to precisely line this up. There we go. Now. Yeah. Enough of this estimating. Molly, hit the balloon more in line. She's drifting off. I just, Molly, pull the balloon towards you half the balloon diameter. Yeah. Oh, what a difference. Now, I want you all to speculate on the shape of the air coming out of the precision vortex generator of science. You might think the shape of the air is a cylinder, like a slug of air, a round object cut off at the end. You might think it's a bullet with a round nose and a flat back. You might think it's a teardrop, like the precision balloon fish. But now, using theater fog, I will show you the true shape of the puff of air. Now, this is the fog you get in the theater or whatever, and it's made of sort of boiled soap. And I just want you to be assured, I breathed this for many years on stage, and you can see I'm fine. So, we will put, I will put this, we'll fill the box with the theater fog. And now take a look at the real shape of the air that comes out of the box. How persistent these rings are. We'll get the balcony now, which is nominally a long way away. But the ring goes a long way, holding its shape. And the thing to appreciate it, I'll get you to tell it. The thing to appreciate is that when I'm talking to you, when you hear a sound, the wave goes through the air, right? And the molecules are bumping into each other, bump, 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 bump. Molecules from my mouth aren't making it to your ears. Like, you know that intuitively. When people are talking, they get this enormous wind. People talk. But when you have this configuration of the I precision there of the opening and the compressor in the back. You get this crazy thing where these vortex rings form. And this turns out to be of great significance in understanding the flight of birds and airplanes, and, frankly, understanding the shape of an eruption and an explosive. Spitting a little bit. I'm fine. And I mention this because it's an example of something that's right under our noses. Something that if you saw when you blow out a candle on your birthday or whatever, you think you know what's going on. You're pretty intuitive. About you think it's a puff of air, it's a ball, it's a ball shape or something. But it's actually something far more subtle. And notice that the ring is not like a wave when you make sound. A packet of air, a donut-shaped packet of air, is translated. It's going from here to somewhere else. It's moving this bunch of air. And that insight took many years, took centuries really for fluid dynamics math people to figure out. So with that said, I want to remind everybody that everything in this room, pretty much, is made of about 35 different kinds of atoms. I mean, oh yes, there is some iridium. Somebody's got on some iridium earrings. That's good, thank you. There might be some osmium and some platinum on your jewelry, but in most everything is carbon, and nitrogen, and oxygen, and chlorine, and sodium, and potassium. That's those first few. And that's all you need, really, to make living things. Having the other stuff's good. You've got some mercury and some lead, some bismuth. Who doesn't love plum? But most everything in the universe isn't even that stuff. Most everything is either hydrogen, which has one proton, or helium, which has two. 97% of the universe is hydrogen. About 3% is helium. And then the stuff that you and I are made of is what I like to call everything else. And everything else turns out to be of great significance. This is the Golden Gate Bridge. Actually, it's a picture. If I had the Golden Gate Bridge here, you would know. It's quite large. I don't think it'll even fit this room. And it's made of steel. Now, I had the great privilege of meeting a guy named Rick Smalley, who, unlike everybody here, had a Nobel Prize in chemistry. And he's the guy, or one of the three guys, that discovered what he called buckyballs, Buckminster Fullerene balls, named after a very famous architect named Buckminster Fuller, who was the guy who really promoted the idea that you could make a dome out of triangles, or a dome out of geometric shapes. And so sure enough, the buckyball is, he's got a model of it there in front of him. Is the pattern on a traditional soccer ball. It's hexagon, pentagon, hexagon, pentagon, hexagon, pentagon. And there's 60 carbon atoms in one of these spheres. And Rick Smalley's idea was if you take these spheres and stretch them and allow them to grow, you will have a material that's 10,000 times stronger than steel. I'm sorry, Bill, I thought you said 10. I did. 10,000 times stronger than steel. And it only weighs about a sixth as much. So it is quite possible that somebody in this room, some young person, is going to find a way to make these things not a few billionths of a meter long, but a few meters long, or kilometers long. And then everything that we think of as being made of steel will one day be made of carbon. Let me tell you, although it's part of everything else here, there is no shortage of carbon. We got all the carbon, we got enough carbon to sink a battleship. We got enough carbon to make a battleship. So Rick Smalley's big thing was, traditional environmentalists, like my neighbor Ed Bailey and me, we want you to do less, right? We want you to drive less, use less fresh water. In fact, if you had it going on, going to make it into the future. Instead, we have to find ways to do more with less. And this was Rick Smalley's big idea. We've got to find ways to do more with less. If you told my father that you could plant ryegrass in a wheat field, can we dim the light a little bit? Ryegrass in a wheat field, using information sent to the Earth from satellites, global position, sat-nav, he would think you had lost your mind. But yet we do it every day. So the Fertilizer Corporation did this as a hilarious common joke to show you how precisely they can plant and fertilize soils. And they did it within less than a meter using global position. This is a way to do more with less, to grow crops more efficiently. Right now, about 8% of our electricity, almost 10% of our electricity goes to doing nothing but heating up those little chargers for your cell phone, your calculator, your music player, or the earpiece for your phone. Almost 10% of our energy goes to keeping those things warm when nothing's plugged in. So because they have two prongs, they're like a vampire. And we call that the vampire load. Vampire sucking our energy. If somebody in this room could find a way for the charger to know that the phone is not plugged into it and turn itself off, you would change the world. You could change the world. If we had 10% more electricity for free, that would make everybody's electricity that much more plentiful and cheap. Everything that runs on electricity, your cell phone, your iPod, your music player, your things, they have batteries. I have the use of an electric car. It has batteries. My friends, if you could invent a better battery, cheaper to make, easier to recycle or replace, hold more energy than a given amount of mass and volume, my friends, you would get rich. You would get crazy rich. You would get Bill Gates rich. You would get head of IKEA guy rich. Whether it's yuan, euros, or dollars, you would be wealthy beyond wealth. And this problem has got to be solved. It's just a different way of looking at it. This is from the Australian Climate Change Council, where they're imagining buildings being built that incorporate green spaces in them. Like the buildings are giant plants or trees. They'll have giant plants and trees built in. And you wouldn't be allowed to build a building unless you had this technology somehow worked out. You could water them and get them enough sunlight, and everybody would be able to enjoy the benefits of cleaner air and so on. This is an idea. This is a picture of the Earth and the Moon taken by a camera on the way to Mars called HiRISE, which is an acronym for something like High Accuracy, High Resolution Imaging Experiment, HiRISE camera. Anyway, when you go from the Earth to the Moon, everybody, it's very important that you don't miss. Because if you miss, you end up, in deep space very quickly. The astronauts who made that trip did it in about 3 days. Two and a half days to get there, and a half day to slow down. Well, this rocket, I went down to Cape Canaveral a couple of years ago. This is the New Horizons mission, the spacecraft that's on its way to Pluto. It went past the moon because the spacecraft is so low mass and the rocket is so big. It went past the moon, not in 3 days, but in 9 hours. Going that fast, New Horizons will not reach Pluto until the year 2015. It's still got 5 years to go. It's halfway. It just went past halfway the other day. And we went past Jupiter in the first year and got a little gravity from Jupiter, a little assist. But 2015 is 5 years from now. I just want everybody to think, that's right, I went down to that church in Portland, and I saw Uncle Bill, and he went off on something about doing more with less, bucking balls. Just compare what's going on today 389 parts per million carbon dioxide, 6.8 billion people. Compare what's going on today with what will be going on in the year 2015. And see if things are changing for the better. I hope they will be, and I hope the young people here especially is a big part of it. This is a picture of the planet Saturn, taken by the Galileo spacecraft. Striking picture taken about 2.5 years ago with your tax dollars. And not only is it a picture of Saturn, it's a picture of the Earth. The Earth is right here. It's an astonishing photo. I mean, they got the spacecraft at the other side of Saturn with the sun in the background, they knew where the Earth was, and they got the shot, as we said. It really is something. The Earth is just this tiny speck. Tiny thing. Saturn's an enormous planet. The Earth is this tiny speck. Now, if we just go off to your left a few 100,000 kilometers, the Earth is still there, but there's nothing behind it, nothing in front of it. And I hope when you look at a picture like this, you can kind of appreciate that the Earth is really the middle of nowhere. I remember very well when I was a kid, I was on the beach in Delaware, and my third grade teacher, Mrs. Cochran, told us that there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on the beach. And I remember thinking, Mrs. Cochran, are you high? That's impossible. Mrs. Cochran, have you ever been to the beach for crying out loud? There is sand, lady. There is sand everywhere. You look to your left, your right, there's sand. You look behind you, there is sand. The tide just has more sand. You dig down the sand. And yet, apparently, there are more stars than all of that. So I began to feel pretty insignificant. I mean, I was looking out at the ocean, and I am really, in this cosmic scheme of things, hardly different from a grain of sand. If you're looking from the Earth from outer space, like this, you're either a grain of sand or you're a planet. I mean, there's nothing, what's the difference? Sand, human, whatever, yeah, it's tiny. There's nothing. So I was thinking, I'm just like this speck, living on a speck, which is orbiting a speck, the sun. And that thing really is not a significant thing. The sun is an ordinary star. I'm just a speck on a speck, orbiting a speck, in the middle of specklessness. I am nothing. I suck. What am I doing here? But then I think, with my brain, only this big. In the case of my old boss, of course. Why did it small? But even he could imagine all of this. You can imagine all of this. We can see climate change is happening. We can understand the science of Mountain Helens. And using our brains, we can change the future. We can, dare I say, change the world! Thank you all very much. Okay, so if anybody has questions, walk up to this microphone. Where, you know the checkout is sweatshirt. I'm cool with that. The sound crew on the back. Is it Darren? Sir, I don't remember your name. Jeff, I'm sure. Show them the sweatshirt. They were so cool. The other side. Yeah, see that? That's cool. So does anybody have any questions? Get up to the microphone so everyone can share. I'll just keep the guards close to me.
I'm curious, with your highly precision crafted box there,
Yes.
if the opening
So here's what I'm going to tell you. Try it. All right, try it. Try it. It's very cool. If you make this a triangle, you might expect a triangle to come out. But I'll tell you one of the great things about vortex rings. Everything cancels out. It'll resolve itself into a circle very quickly, into a ring. But it will be sloppy. It will have sharp edges and clutter and stuff. That's the only question?
There's a question from the vortex up here.
Yes.
Will you take them up here?
Yes, of course, from the vortex. Other people call it Falcon.
I realize you're not a volcanologist as such, but...
No, I spent a lot of time.
But I was wondering, I was thinking about Mount Rainier.
Hold that thought one
You
minute.
mentioned it.
Hold that thought 1 minute. Sir, do you know what a volcanologist is? No, guy next to you. Yes, guy who studies volcanoes. Well done. Yes, lead on.
Well, you talked for a moment about Mount Rainier in your presentation.
Yes.
It reminded me about, I had taken a class about volcanoes, and the professor...
You took a class, did you put it back?
By the end of the class, I think it stuck with me the most, so it's hard for me to remember all the details, was being very afraid of Mount Rainier, because so did St. Helens. But since then, I've tried to remember, exactly what he presented that made that so clear.
So, sir, if this were a game show,
Yeah.
I would ask you to state that in the form of a question.
From what you do know, do you think that there is a significant threat from
Mount Rainier? Heck, yes.
Yes. Is it
blow? Yeah.
Is it greater than the threat from Mount St. Helens, say, the next 50 or 100 years?
Yeah, it is, because it's closer to civilization. Well, yeah. Closer to where people live. So it's more dangerous. So you can, of course, run a circle screening. You can. Or you can be prepared. And I encourage everybody to have emergency preparedness equipment at home. But also I encourage everybody to have emergency equipment in your car. We spend so much time in our cars, so much time driving, that it's very likely you'll be out someplace and you'll get cut off. And you have to sit there for a day or two. So it's good to have water and food in your car. And I always have a prison for something to do. Yeah, you never know. You never know. So we just got to be ready. Is there another question? Yes.
I have a question. I wanted to know what you think about recent volcanic earthquake activity.
Oh, the earthquake activity, yes. So I've been on MSNBC and CNN about the earthquake swarm, because we had these huge earthquakes, and the one in Chile was so big. It was so big, it apparently disturbed the Earth's axis ever so slightly. Less a millionth of an arc, thousandth of an arc second, like a millionth of a degree. It's quite, that's astonishing. I mean, the Earth is a big thing. The geode. For the day would be nominally shorter by a millionth of a second, but we remind us that the days are getting longer because of the action of the tides. That completely overwhelms that little effect. But that's a big earthquake, that's all. And then the big one in Turkey, and the big one in Indonesia, and so on. And if you are psychic, I really encourage you to predict an earthquake. There are about 1,000 a year. So you should be able to get that right. It's just that these three have been really big, and it happened in places that are with the building codes that are not consistent or very good. And as we say, earthquakes don't hurt people, buildings hurt people. So we need buildings to be sufficiently strong and sufficiently flexible for earthquakes. But in those developing parts of the world, like some parts of Chile did very well, because the government run building codes and streets and stuff very well. The whole building literally dead. So yeah, there's a lot of earthquakes that we are be ready.
We have another one up here.
Oh, we'll go up there. Where are you? Oh, there it is. Yeah. Get closer to me. How much
How much volcanoes actually are there in the world?
How many volcanoes are there? I'd say, it depends how you count, there's certainly 100, but there might be 10,000. Then you count big or small. What does high mean? My parents, when you were drunk, you were high, but now, in sort of when I was in college stuff, if you smoke marijuana, but what it is, at some level, you are not confident. You are not mentally fully there. On a kind of spectrum. And it got a laugh. When I was in California, big push in marijuana legal, big push. But I'll just tell you anecdotally, as a guy who played ultimate frisbee in Salem, Oregon. I was still in Salem, Massachusetts. In Salem, Oregon, I have to be really careful about making marijuana legal. I just think, I'm not going to say anything astonishingly controversial. If you smoke too much, you just get stupid. Watching, observing, yeah, what is the purpose?
Alright, I was reading about the Yellowstone caldera the other day.
Yellowstone caldera, super volcano.
Yes, super volcano. National Geographic.
Super volcano is sort of a Discovery Channel one.
Yeah. I'm assuming you know about the
super volcano.
Super volcano. Alright. How does a giant pocket of magma just hit the bottom of Wyoming?
Well, it's a lot of evidence to suggest that the magma was there before they called it Wyoming. I kid.
They just randomly know it's Wyoming.
It's not that the magma is especially big bubble, it's that the Earth's crust there is a little thin. And the same place you find that in Hawaii, where the solid part of the crust got thin, and then it'll poke up through. So if you've ever been in Nebraska, you can see ash fall from that volcano in Idaho, Wyoming. But on the Discovery Channel, they love to tell you that the supervolcano is like about to blow up any millennium now. Yeah. It's pretty cooled off up there.
And relative to we're talking about the tectonic plates and the fire and the Pacific Coast, does that have anything to do with this?
No. Yes, everything to do with it. It's like tectonic plates are shifting, and so there's a lot of heat close enough to the surface in that area where you get that phreatic business, the hot water and the geysers. But the geysers are tiny, tiny speck compared to what people imagine a supervolcano is. So let's go to the next question. Yes, Chief. I'll sign it afterwards. We'll do the question. Okay. Yes, woman in plaid.
Bill, this doesn't really have anything to do with what you talked about,
I don't fit
but it's actually my physics homework.
So, you would like me, licensed mechanical engineer, you'd like me to solve your physics problem. Bring it on.
Well, we're dealing with the refraction of light, and I don't understand how the wave model explains refraction.
Refraction.
Yes.
How does the particle model explain it?
Well, okay,
Quantum electrodynamics, short answer. It is generally agreed that the slower the wave, the more spread out the wave, the easier it is to refract. So glass, for example, in water, light travels more slowly through it than it does air or vacuum. So it is like a great analogy to marching band, where one side, when you're in the marching band, you watch the guy next to you to determine how much to turn. If that guy slows down, the guy on your right, or in your case, your left, slows down, then you turn toward it. And so when it goes into the glass, water, air, it slows down. And that's how this technology that many of us are familiar with works. You can use plastic or glass to direct light speed. That would be the medium-long answer to your question. But they have worked out some very rigorous mathematics that we hope you will learn before you get your degree in physics.
Okay, we have one last question up here.
One last question, maybe the last balcony question?
Last balcony.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah, just a minute. Balcony person. Next balcony question. What time do we have to quit? Okay, you want to do 5 more questions?
Okay, fine.
Because you gotta have an odd number. 5 more questions. So let's do 6 more. We'll take 2 from up there and 4 from down here. That's an even number. Yes, man in black.
Are there any other shapes of air?
Are what?
Are there any other shapes of air?
Other shapes of air.
Yeah, like how
Besides
the
waves?
Yeah.
I really want you to find that out. So, you ever seen a water droplet? You've heard of it. So, can you imagine there being a droplet of air? Have you ever been in an airplane where there's a lot of moisture in the air and you see the stream going over the wing? Does that look like a ring to you? Or a ball? Or a teardrop? There are many shapes. I hope you will investigate them and get your degree in computational fluid dynamics. Yes. Woman in pink. Gray in pink.
During your presentation, you showed us how Mount St. Helens was able to replenish its flora and fauna in a short amount of time. So,
More surprisingly short amount of time.
So if people were to really commit to finding alternative ways and becoming more eco-friendly, would the Earth be able to heal itself?
That is our hope. And the word heal itself, we remind us, the Earth is going to be here. People say, I want to save the Earth. You've got to save the Earth. I want to save the Earth for me. The cockroaches and the sea jellies, the poison ivy is going to be rats. They're going to be great. The dandelions apparently have it dialed in. But I want to save the world for me. Yeah, my claim is, I remind you, here's something that I think about quite often. My grandfather, this is not some guy that I heard a story, this is my grandfather, a guy I could hang out with. He was in World War I, and he was shot for when he was a chemist. And he used to put bleach in the canteens, in the blister bags, because drinking bleach is bad, but having dysentery, diarrhea while you're trying to fight is worse, generally agree. As I know, it really was miserable. But in those days, in World War I, my grandfather was on a horse. He went to the front lines on a horse. He had a gas mask for himself, he had a gas mask for his horse. I mean, it's incredible, I know, yeah. But 20 years later, 1938, 1940, nobody did anything like that with a horse. Nobody delivered the milk in Baltimore, Maryland. Nobody did any serious weapons and fighting was not done on horseback. Everything changed in 20 years. So I claim that if we have 20 more years, we can change everything. That's up to you. Get her done. Last question from the balcony. We're going to have to pick. Last question from the balcony.
Hi, Bill. I'm a student at Portland State University.
Portland State University.
You're the reason why I started to go into physical science.
Right on.
And I graduate next term.
Right on.
Anyway, I took a class last term about volcanology, and they were saying something about there's sound waves coming out of the base of a volcano
Yes.
before it erupts. Now,
Could
do
be.
you think this is a reliable way of determining when?
I don't know enough about it, but certainly listening to things around 20 hertz, 20 cycles a second, like the elephant sound, that low, very reasonable. Whenever you have steam going through cracks and rocks, you're going to have vibration. Very reasonable. You will be the woman who figures this out. Since develops the volcanic monitoring system and to get rich. Yes. It never does. Thank you. Woman in blue. We're not going to get to everybody. We just, guy in plaid is the last guy. Sorry. I mean, am I right? You okay? Hold aside. Shoulder side. I don't need to remember it. Yes.
Okay, I must admit I'm not asking about anything related to volcanology. I got distracted by vegetables. And
You got
I
distracted by what?
distracted by the carbon
Oh, good.
thing.
Yes,
And
good.
I was wondering how close are we to actually being able to use that technology?
Well, so we're using the technology. You ever put on modern sunscreen that's clear? So they found ways to make rods of zinc oxide that are so short they don't reflect the light that we see, but they're just the right length to reflect the ultraviolet. And it's really cool technology with nanotechnology. So that's sort of working. But many, many universities have nanotechnology programs. Many corporations have programs to try to grow these nanotubes. But 50 billionths of a meter, 50 nanometers is the upper limit right now. Maybe you solve the problem. Rick Smalley's big thing is a chemist. He wanted it so you didn't have to grow them or shape them, or they would just form themselves like crystals, the way crystals form when they're solid. Maybe you will be able to do that. Get her done. So, Doc, here's the doctor up here.
Hello. My question is that the air was circle when it came out of the vortex.
Right, yes.
It also has the same effect when it comes out of the Civil War.
A replica Civil War candidate. Exactly.
My question is,
How often I thought about it.
my question is, what it doesn't say when someone's smoking when they blow smoke out. It's more of a stream. Why is that?
When they're smoking, they just blow it out.
Yeah.
You ever see people puff smoke rings?
No.
So, I'll tell you, what happens to you every day, I'm struck at how old I am. But back in the day, somebody like my father would be smoking a cigarette. And if you puff it gently, you can make a ring. My father quit smoking. I never learned to smoke. I don't encourage it. But there's an airspeed difference when you go, or when you go. And there's some subtle difference, right, between. Is there lies the difference between vortex rings and not vortex rings?
I don't say reference to the vortex blowing out there really slow though.
Yeah, but I'll bet you there's a gap between the cannonball and the thing. And it may not be as fast as you think. The replica cannon may not actually be shooting ordnance at the enemy.
Oh no,
It's just making a lot of noise. The old replica Civil War cannon. But thank you. Observe it. It all starts with observation. Yes, sir.
one statement, two questions.
Just go with your question.
Okay. I already said my favorite. I already done three statements. Have you ever noticed that it looks like a very, very handsome Abraham Lincoln?
No, I've never noticed that. Let me finish my thinking. Yes, and your other question.
My other question is, if the last ditch effort to like cool off the climate change, can we just blow up volcanoes every now and then?
Well, sort of. It's been proposed that you shoot these aerosols, these fine particles of sulfur dioxide high in the atmosphere to reflect light into space. But I got to think that's got a couple problems. That's got to be short term, right? You're reflecting all this light into space. Then I don't know how much time you spend with sulfur dioxide. It's going to fall down, and then you're going to have to deal with it that way. So I'm not crazy about that. But increasing the reflectivity or albedo, the whiteness of the Earth, could be a great thing. See if you can questions? Thank you for your statements and questions. Yes, woman in green. Woman in purple, you're the last one. You're veering up. Okay, so let's do you and then guy in red. Woman in green, take it.
Okay, so
Go to the microphone.
I was wondering, the new growth on Mount Helens that's come back so very quickly, are those plants similar to the ones that were there before, or is there
Oh, yes.
anything going on there?
People study these. People are obsessed with these. Some of the scientists in this room cannot get enough of what plants come back first. Yeah, all the plants are from the earth. They're not. So they're plants that were in the Pacific Northwest to begin with. Just which ones get established first, and then the succession. What plant succeeds the next plant is of great interest. The thing is, in a regular country, if you had a volcano like that, and all that timber is falling down into the Spirit Lake, in a regular country, they would have taken all the timber out and made it into houses, thinking this is a great thing. Mother Nature knocked down all these trees, which is fabulous. But here, even the U.S. Forest Service decided this would be cool to let things be, pretty much leave things alone, and let's see what happens. So there was something about all that organic material, all that light material, being scattered all over the ground, made things come back really fast, much faster. Very cool. It's a huge experiment that we conducted, and we learn from it every day. So donate to the Mountain Institute. Very good question. Yes, man in red. Can somebody help man in red with the microphone?
My question was, is there any more volcanoes on other planets?
There are volcanoes on other planets. Yes. Excellent question. And maybe you will go there and study. Very good. Volcanoes here on Earth often have water, and they're often warm. So maybe there's some place on Mars where it used to be warm and wet, and then maybe there are living things there that were there 2 billion years ago. And even spookier yet, maybe there's some kind of crazy Martian microbe, some Mars probe, that's still making a living there today. And if somebody like you could go to Mars and chip around and find evidence of life, it would change the world. It would change the world. Last question, woman in purple.
All right, I have a question that you've probably never been asked. I actually didn't even have a question. I just wanted to get line for a picture. But I just thought of one. So my dad's a really good cook, and he's really into science and watching about planets. And he was making dinner one night with blue cheese, and he said, I wonder if there's blue cheese in other galaxies.
As we say, we're the place of worship. As we say, you really can't know. You can believe. But you can't know. So if there are similar organisms in other galaxies, I very much hope they have cheese. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Before you take off, I just want to remind you that flyers on the back table are about our 30th anniversary event. Please come, we love